Will Salby. I'm the Market Deep Model Railway Club Outreach Coordinator. Earlier in 2024, we were approached by Peterborough Museum if we could assist in their summer exhibition, which was entitled Peterborough Railways, specifically between the wars, 1920 to 1940. As a model railway club, we're also a charity, and part of our brief is to spread the interest in model railways. And the club took this as being an ideal opportunity to help and assist the museum. It so happened that we did have a model that we'd been kindly donated of Peterborough East railway station. We had this in our store and we'd thought about for several years what to do with it. And this was the ideal opportunity of taking that model and putting it into a live situation where people could see it. We then set a team up. The model itself needed slightly bit of renovation, which we managed to do. We've spent a lot of time doing research with Alan and other members of the team, looking at photographs, talking with the museum staff, meeting with the museum staff, and with Neen Valley Railways. From all that research, we managed to make a static model, and that is on display in the museum. Around the museum, not only is our static model, but there is photographs going back over the last century, showing all the different buildings and the railway in its prime.
I'm Alan Hancock, and I was partly responsible for the historical research leading to the model. The first thing to say is that this is not the Peterborough station that you know today. This is very much a forgotten station in the sense that I've been around for 50 years and I knew nothing about it at all, and neither did most of my colleagues. The history here around Peterborough is extremely complicated, but to simplify it, essentially Peterborough East station evolved from the meeting point of two lines, one from west to east, the other from east to west. Later on they were joined by lines from the north and ultimately became part of the local Great Northern system, which was not at the time a full route from London to the north. So by 1850, 4 mainline railway companies were using Peterborough East, but then the Great Northern built its own station, so essentially the main north-south route bypassed the station. This is proved problematic later. Until the coming of the railways, Peterborough had been a very small settlement. Although it had a cathedral, it was essentially a point of the meeting of the uplands and the fenlands, a market town. From that point, the railways gave enormous stimulation and it grew very rapidly. The railway stimulated growth in the local area, both in agricultural and industrial commodities. There was an exchange of coal, for example, from the Midlands to the east, and agricultural products from the east to the west. In terms of passengers, there were actually relatively few through services, which is a disadvantage. And apart from excursions from various cities in the north and Midlands to the east coast, boat trains to Harwich, and various other specialised interchanges, for example, prisoners of war were repatriated through Peterborough East to Boston at the end of the First World War. In terms of freight, there were some interesting workings. For example, Irish cattle came through Holyhead, through to Peterborough East to the Fenland grazings. They also stimulated enormous growth of local industries, and you can see many of these represented on the private owner wagons on the railway model. By the 1960s, local services were declining. The interchange between the two stations was inconvenient, and in fact, one of the timetables suggests that this was very definitely at the passenger's expense. It was particularly important for mail, which of course was time sensitive, and so they had to delay the departure of some trains to allow the interchange from north to south, to east to west. By the 1960s, the local passenger services were declining, and in the late 1960s, the station was closed. For a short time, it became a parcels depot, and there was a suggestion of having the National Transport Museum here in the 1970s, but that came to nothing. So essentially now there is very little left of the station, a very limited amount of a platform. The turntable is now on the Nene Valley Railway, and some of the old engine sheds, I think, are going to become a bar in the near future.
Hi, my name is Ian Reeves. I was involved in the track planning and laying for the static model. We started with the buildings, which were donated by Alan Haycock, or built by Alan Haycock and donated by his son. And the buildings were built in the mid-70s. So once they'd been refurbished, we looked at what we had and the space we had in the museum, which was limited to 7 feet long. So we started with a map, a fairly indeterminate map because we didn't actually know the date on it. It featured things like wagon turntables. But when we looked at the photos we had from the period we were interested in, from the 20s to the 40s, the wagon turntables were missing. So we went back to the photos and started looking at what we could see and what the track layout was from there. When we'd had the buildings in storage for a few years, and they'd been moved around various places as we moved to clubhouses, ending up on kitchen units for 18 months, and wondering what we were going to do with them. When this opportunity came along, we got the buildings down and had a look, and they were looking a little bit worse for wear. They are 50 years old. So our in-house building expert, David Hildred, got involved and he refurbished the buildings.
When we received it, the lights weren't working, but they were wired in, so we knew where the wires had to go. It was simply a matter of replacing all the lights with period standard lamps for the platforms and bracket lights for the walls of the station buildings. These were LED lights instead of P bulbs, because LED lights last an awful lot longer.
So two of the elements that we were donated were the town bridge, which was built in the early 30s, and the associated signal box, which straddled one of the tracks. This was also built at the same time as the bridge, as the original signal box had to be moved.
There is an enormous amount of history displayed on the walls around here, if you want more detail. But when we started researching for the model, we used the fairly normal sources, books, very, very good indeed, a rather bedraggled copy of Bradshaw that I dug out for myself. And we also used the website on disused stations, which is a mine of information, and of course help from the Nene Valley Railway.
I'm Mick. I was responsible for the ballasting. We did some research into it to find that most of the yard was just basically ash. The main line was a more clean ballast, so we did the main line first, and then we went to the yard and we decided to mix the ballast with some coal dust. We found some black poster paint as well to mix in with it, to make a much darker thing, and we just spread it all over the whole yard.
So my name's Sarah Wilson. I'm the Heritage Manager here at Peterborough Museum Art Gallery. So one of the really great things I think about this exhibition has been the kind of community engagement. So just to bring an exhibition of this size together, it's involved having to work really closely with a lot of partners, such as the Market Deeping Model Railway Club, GNRS, Sophie Mitchell, who's done a lot of research and contributed to the exhibition, the lovely guys across at Rail World, and of course the Nene Valley Railway. So bringing an exhibition of this size together has involved lots of different partners, each bringing their own expertise, and it's been, I think, really interesting to create the narrative, the story, because there's been lots of things we've been able to talk about, such as the Old East Railway and that lovely model that you guys have put together, but also thinking about the story about how, for example, this building, the infirmary, developed off the back of a lot of investment from the railway companies and looking after their workers in times of illness and accident.
From the Model Railway Club, we came here in the early part of the year, not knowing what to expect. And we were amazed when we spoke to the staff at the time, and taking a look at the area where we'd put the exhibition, and looking at photographs, we realised that there was a lot of work and research which we could do. And it was a pleasure from the club to be able to research and to make what was a historic into a live situation, and to fit in with the rest of the exhibition, to talk to the other partners involved. We met with the other colleagues from Neem Valley Railways, and we've had a lot of assistance from everyone, and it has brought out the history into this live situation that we have now, and that people can see, and it's there for future generations as well.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think what's been great for us, it appeals to young and old. So we've lots of kids coming in over the summer enjoying the activities.
I know when we were assembling it, people were coming round, and even though this area was closed, people were looking, and people were taking an interest. And one of our members here today, he was in a few weeks ago, and immediately he got to talking to people that were looking at the exhibition. So yes, it's an excellent restoration of what we had.
So Peterborough Railways is running up until the 21st, I believe, of September 2024. The museum is open over the summer period from Monday until Saturday, and then outside of the summer holidays it will be Tuesday until Saturday, 10 till 4.